Jalen Hurts, the new starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to go over all the new instant news and reactions from this crazy week for the Philadelphia Eagles and organization, as well as Philadelphia 76ers training camp is underway. And we're almost basically a week away from the first preseason game for the Philadelphia 76ers on December 15th, as well as Flyers on the cusp of the 2021 season starting in mid-January. We'll get to all that. You're listening to the Connor and Mark show alongside Mark Rogers. I'm Connor Gabe. We'll get through all of this today. A lot to react to on this week's podcast. Mark, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm beaming right now. I love the way you just came out of the jump there.
Well,
Got
huge
the
news.
It is huge news. You're right, and what a great way to start it. I'm fired up for sure. Just the way you jumped in there and introed, but you're completely right, man. We're gonna dive all into Eagles maybe being one of the most dysfunctional organizations right now in football. Really not used to seeing this, especially in Philadelphia. Get into a little the preview of the game this week, and obviously some Sixers and Flyers, and I'm ready to go, man. A little college football too as well. Some big news coming out of the Big Ten. We'll get to.
Yeah, a lot of news all over the sports spectrum. But really, the thing that hit hardest the most yesterday, Doug Peterson came out and had an interview with Eagles analyst Dave Spadaro. Basically, he was announcing that Jalen Hurts is going to be starting against the New Orleans Saints Sunday, as Carson Wentz, the franchise quarterback and the face of this franchise for the past couple of years, could be second fiddle on the bench behind Jalen Hurts, really because of his poor play throughout the regular season, and they just need a change and a spark. We saw him enter against the Packers, and in the second half, and Jalen Hurts really added a spark to this team and almost created some sort of comeback in that game, even though they're down and out for the majority of the three quarters. So. But yeah, Jalen Hurts is going to be starting against the Saints, so a really good defense, a really good team, number one in the NFC. And, a lot of reaction from sports talk media, a lot of reaction from sports talk radio players, analysts, really. But, Mark, I'll throw it to you. This news came down yesterday. And obviously, I don't think it was too surprising. I think people expected this move to happen, especially how Jalen Hurts kind of played. I thought he played pretty well, given the circumstances of not really having a traditional training camp or any preseason games to play in as well. That was really his first game as an Eagle as a quarterback. So what's your reaction to the news, and what do you think entails of Jalen Hurts as a quarterback for the Eagles going forward with this season and even into next year as well?
I mean, with the situation given, it obviously makes sense if you're on the outside looking in. But as an Eagles fan, and I'm sure you can definitely attest to this, is you're in shock. You're kind of, you can't really believe it at this point in time. That he's going to be on the bench. I mean, obviously his plays dictated where he's going. But I hope that there was something talked about within that room that. Going into training camp next year, and that's barring that Jalen plays the remainder of the 4 games, of the Eagles season, that he's going to have the upper hand to win the starting job next year. And depending on how he plays, how much of that upper hand's going to be. But, I mean, he's a big investment, man. We owe him a lot of money. And the decision was, again, his play makes sense, but the decision obviously wowed everyone. And, to see a new guy out there, I think it is going to give this Eagles team a spark. But it's crazy news. I'm still like fiddling words even about it, just because I'm a huge Wentz supporter. I really like what he does. I like the way he plays. He just has a toughness, a grit, and an attitude where he just never gives up on the play. Unfortunately, this year that may have even costed him his job, as he leads the league in picks with 15. He has 16 touchdowns and a passer rating of 72.8. So, not great numbers. And with a guy getting that much money, being the upper echelon of pay grade for his position, you expect a lot more out of him. But I'm anxious and I'm excited to see, with our quarterback moving forward right now, who's Jalen Hurts. But a lot of dysfunction going on in the organization, man. And the last thing I do want to say before I throw it back to you is, this is not all just on him. This team has really been plagued by injury, and I know this season has been that for a lot of teams. But just all the shift combinations of the O-line, the guys he's playing in at the receiver position week in and week out, the lack of the play calling and not really running the ball when our best skilled player is our running back. all the combination of those things are also what led to this decision. It's just unfortunate that, in this sport, it's the quarterback that normally takes the brunt of the force, and that's evident here with Wentz on the bench.
That's true. And Doug Peterson spoke with, media about it. He said that he believes that Carson Wentz can still be exceptional in this league. He also said that he believes they can get him back to his old self, and he regained form to his 2017 MVP season. And when they drafted, Jalen Hurts, he didn't envision that this is a scenario that will be playing out as we're looking at today. Also, other players like Jalen Reagor spoke out today saying, whoever we rock with, I rock with. So, I know that there's some younger players that really have spoken out about, Jalen Hurts and what kind of player that he is and what kind of leader he is to this team than what he could be. Also, some veteran players. Jason Kelsey spoke today. I thought that was really interesting, saying that this is not just Carson Wentz's problem. This is a problem with coaching staff and other players. So really, he laid the hammer, which kind of was surprising. But I know he's a very vocal leader with this team ever since he's been here and drafted, I believe, in 2011. So and also Fletcher Cox spoke out saying that he's a huge Carson Wentz supporter, and it's not just his fault. So a lot of a lot of craziness surrounding with the situation. I wonder if there's going to be any locker room divisiveness that is created from this decision. I don't know, but this is the type of stuff that happens when you have veterans in the locker room that's been around Carson Wentz for the past couple of years, and younger guys like Jalen Reagor, for example, or maybe like a Kayvon Wallace who came in with Jalen Hurts and see him as a quarterback that can, maybe, lead this team and lead this offense more efficiently than Carson Wentz. So I don't know what's going to happen for the near future, but it's a really crazy situation. I think, it's Philadelphia and quarterback controversies. You can't name a better duo. It always happens, whether it's, Vic or Foles, whether it was Sam Bradford or Carson Wentz at the time. There's always feel like there's a quarterback controversy in this town, whether that's egged on by the media or Howard Roseman really just picking Jalen Hurts in the second round and creating one himself. There's always one. So I'm excited to see how Jalen Hurts plays. This is a tough matchup for him, and it's still the same offense that Carson Wentz is operating under. So this is what I'm really looking forward to, is whether or not Jalen Hurts operates the offense more efficiently and more productive, obviously, than Carson Wentz. So what does that say, and what does that entail going not just this year but going forward? Because if Jalen Hurts steps into the season and he goes in these last 4 games and he faces the Saints and Washington, who are pretty good defenses, as we saw Washington, who upset Pittsburgh the other day. Also Dallas and Arizona, who have pretty weaker defenses. Like, let's say Jalen Reagor goes out and actually does pretty well. What does this mean going forward to training camp, and what does it mean going forward in 2021 season? So let's say he does really good. Then do you start Carson Wentz in training camp as number 1, or you start Jalen Hurts as the number 1? I keep saying Jalen Reagor. But
no, it's tripping you up. I'll help you out.
2 Jalen's is, going in. It's confusing, but it's a lot. It's confusing, and you don't know. Obviously, you can't – it's really hard to trade Carson Wentz, because even if you trade him, it doesn't work with the NBA. Even if you trade him and his salary, you still got to pay that amount of money to your salary cap. So even though the CBA, they wanted, guaranteed money for these players, they're like, okay, well, you have to – if you do trade him, you still have to pay that money towards the salary cap. So it makes it harder to trade. Like, for example, like Al Horford was due, I think, right around $28 million. They traded him. They don't even have to pay his salary anymore because they shipped off a first-round pick with it. So it's not like the NBA. So it makes everything confusing. And I don't know. This whole situation is a giant, S show, whatever you want to call it. I'll keep it PG for the viewers. But it's exciting, obviously, for Philadelphia and the media. It's exciting for the fans, I guess, who obviously have been watching an abysmal offense all year and want to see a little bit of a rejolt and some type of energy, on Sunday. But I don't know. I'm excited to see how Jalen Hurts operates in this offense and what kind of things they throw at us. Does Doug lean on the running game as much as more than Carson? I don't know. I think Doug likes to pass the ball, so I think we're going to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball a lot, because maybe this team may go down early, because this Saints team's good. Even though it takes the ball, they're still pretty good.
Yeah, and I want to kind of dissect a little what you said there, because you made some interesting points. That the first one is, what if Hurts comes in and operates this offense a little more efficiently? And to a degree, I think that will be the case. As we saw, obviously a very small sample size, on Sunday, but he likes to make that short throw. He likes to make that quick pass, get the ball out of his hands, and get that short yardage. The thing with Wentz is he loves trying to extend the play, and I'm not knocking on him for it. But sometimes the play calls are not designed to really go downfield. And, sometimes when he does go downfield, you have John Hightower down there who's in left field sometimes, or the ball's going through his hands or something like that. So to that point, I think Hurts may succeed a little more in this offense. Getting the ball out quicker and maybe even running it. He's got younger legs. He's a great runner. He's great athletic ability. So I think that's interesting. And then the point of going into training camp next year, again, it's predicated on how he plays these last 4 games. And if he plays it really well and the Eagles look great, it could be a really tough battle for Wentz to get in there. But, the final point about the salary, I think that makes a huge decision, as we've seen this year. And in a very terrible, terrible design of trying to get Alshon Jeffrey the ball, and supposedly because they owe him a lot of money and they want to make this investment worthwhile. So a part of me says that Wentz comes back as a starter next year regardless because of how much they're paying them, and they can't get him off the books. And that's a real crappy way to run an organization. It's just bad investment after bad investment. So, in closing, he could be the starter next year. He could not be. I really don't see a scenario of him getting traded. I don't know a team that could really take on that type of money. And again, I don't even know if the Eagles could handle, giving him up for whatever the value would be. So it's a very interesting question. It's going to be a great game this week. I think this offense is going to be a little more rejuvenated. I think that the Eagles can make this a game. It's kind of a lay-down game, if you will. The Saints are clinched the playoff spot. They've been rolling the past few games. So if the Eagles can get on them early and score some points on this really efficient defense, it could be a game. But hopping into the game this week, the Saints are 10-2. Like I said, they clinched the playoff spot, and Taysom Hill's been looking pretty good in the quarterback position. 543 yards over his 3 games, 4 touchdowns, rushing, 2 passing. So, I'm going to throw it to you, Connor. What do you think of this offense, for the Saints, and what do you think the Eagles have to do to score points on this efficient defense?
Well, let's start with the offense for the Saints. Obviously, Taysom Hill stepped in, and he's done pretty well. I think that he's obviously a mobile quarterback. He's very different to Drew Brees compared to, obviously, style and how the offense is run. I think that Alvin Kamara has kind of taken a secondary step. I think Michael Thomas is really elevated in this Saints offense with Taysom Hill. But, yeah, listen, I think that the Saints team is really good. I think they're going to make a deep run. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs earlier in the year. I stick by that. I think that these 2 teams are going to meet in the Super Bowl. I think I picked this. So I may flip that. I don't know. But, I think Drew Brees, he's going to obviously be back probably the following week because they play the Saints. Or not the Saints, the Chiefs. Saints and the Chiefs play each other. But, Taysom Hill has been pretty good. And I know that he had this kind of Swiss Army knife role. But he's really fit in. And I think that Sean Payton, obviously, he's one of the offensive geniuses in this league, has really figured out a way to mold this offense around him and make it easier for him going forward. I'm not really concerned about the offense as much as I am concerned about the defense. And obviously, a rookie quarterback going up against this defense is really good against the run, which is concerning because I definitely want to get this running game going as much as I can against a really good defense with a rookie quarterback, guys like Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, as much as they can get the play action game going. But the problem is they're the best in the league against the run, so it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. So a lot of read options, a lot of, you may have to throw a trick play or 2 in there, I think, to get the defense a little unsettled, especially with Malcolm Jenkins back there, too, for the Saints. He obviously has a lot of familiarity with this Eagles offense, obviously going against him with practice and stuff like that. So it's going to be tough, I think. I don't see the Eagles winning this weekend. It's going to be a really tough matchup. I don't think the Eagles really have a chance to win a game all year except for Dallas. But, I think this is a tough matchup for Jalen Hurts, even though I'm saying he has to play, horrendous for them to put Wentz back in. Even if he has a pretty bad game, it is what it is. It's a good defense. He's a rookie quarterback, and he hasn't had a lot of time to work on his game and work on his ability to play. But I think that it's going to be a tough matchup for him. So you have to get your best players involved. You have to get Miles Sanders involved. You have to get Travis Fulgham involved. And I saw a report, John Clark just tweeted this out. Doug Peterson said Jason Peters and Alshon Jeffrey are sore and that they're probably not going to play this Sunday. So,
Thank God.
yeah, no, thank God. Listen, Alshon Jeffrey playing is really
Liability.
it's a liability, and it's really just a contract kind of play. Like, hopefully we can, get some other teams watching him, maybe trade for him in the offseason. But as of right now, he's just nothing. That's what he is. So, you got to get the ball to Sanders, Fulgham, Goddard. Greg Ward, I think, is a nice, slot option. I think that him and Jalen Hurts had said they have a nice connection, and they're good friends off the field. So I think that's a good connection to have. I see, obviously Hurts threw a touchdown pass to Greg Ward. So you just have to get the ball out quick and run the football as much as you can. I know it's going to be a struggle against the Saints defense, but that's going to be the key. And that's going to be the only way you're going to keep this game close going forward in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree. And real quick, just to capitalize on how good that defense has been, they've only allowed 44 points against since week 9, and they've had 9 interceptions. So that's a really, really good defense. And, this offense has shown that they can get going with Taysom Hill at the quarterback position. And I think he's going to be on the move a lot this week. And he's going to be finding his favorite target, who's been Michael Thomas, who started the season very late due to some off the field issues, I believe, or practice altercation. But nonetheless, he's going to be very involved. And I think you made a great point about Malcolm Jenkins knowing, this Eagles offense that has just been lackluster and unable to get going all year. So, I think the Eagles lose too. And unfortunately, I think they lose pretty big. I'm going to go Saints over the Eagles 24-10.
24-10. Okay, so I'm going to go Saints, obviously. I'm going to have them win it by a lot. But I still think Jalen Hurts has a pretty nice game. So I'm going to go Saints 34, Eagles 21. And I think he looks good. I think he has a pretty good game. You have to get Miles Sanders involved. He's obviously the best player on this offense, and the fact they don't give him the ball at least 20 touches a game is ridiculous. I know he has a little bit of a fumbling problem. I know but he's young, so you have to work out of it like any young player. You got to keep giving him the ball, and it's really ridiculous how they've shied away from the run as much as they can over the past couple of weeks. So I still think they lose by a lot, but as of right now, where it stands, I think this team's not good. I think they're heading towards a top 5 pick in the NFL draft in April, and obviously we'll be covering the draft like we did last year as well. Same thing, stuff like that, and we'll get down to closer to that once we get closer to April. But we'll move on to our in our next segment. Mark, we'll talk about your hot take of the week. I know we talked a lot bit before the show, and I don't know what your record is right now. I don't know what you did last week for hot take of the week. But Mark, what's your hot take of the week this week, and how'd you do last week?
So last week, unfortunately, we didn't release a pod. We were doing the instant reaction, so I didn't release a pick last week. However, I believe that I said, and I'm not counting this for my record, but I just believe that I said Washington was going to beat the Steelers. So I'm not marking that down for the record. The record's 4-6 right now. Not great. Got to get back on the 500 track. But hey, it's hot takes. That's the best part of the segment. It's fun. So I know we were talking about this before the show, Connor, and I'm going to switch my hot take up. It's not going to be who you think or who I told you it was going to be. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings going into Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's favored by 6.5. I'm not sold on this Buccaneers team. I think it's too much of an all-star team. Just way too much talent and too many people that expect the ball in their hands. And I don't see this team, if they make the playoffs, really going far in the playoffs. Tom Brady looks really inaccurate. He's not playing the way he played in New England, where he would throw short and short passes. And he looks really inaccurate when he goes downfield. He's trying to do too much. And I think that this Vikings team's hungry. They started 1-5. They're 6-6 now. So my hot take of the week is the Vikings, and they're going to beat the Bucks 34-31.
Okay. I mean, it's not unreasonable. I think this Viking offense is pretty good. And we see Justin Jefferson step up a little bit. He's a really good player. Adam Thielen,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook. Obviously. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins can play well when you give him the chance. He has a nice arm, and he can play really well. So And the Tampa Bay teams, their offense has struggled. They've not been able to throw the ball downfield, and I think that they struggle defensively as well. Their defense is not as good as they were in the first half of the season. So I don't think it's a hot take, but it's not unreasonable. I think it can happen.
All right, Connor. So now we're going to move into your segment, buy or sell, real quick. Just to recap, took Vikings over the Bucs this week. Bucs 6.5 point favorites. That's going to be 1:00 on Sunday. All right, Connor, going to buy or sell. This one is for Zach. I know he's sitting there, so I'm going to toss this one out. You better make the right call. Buy or sell that the Bills will win over the Steelers on Sunday Night Football.
He's sitting right here. I don't want to be a dick, but I'm gonna buy. I think because I was watching the Bills on what was it? It was a Monday night, Tuesday night. No, it was
Monday night.
It was Monday night. Yeah, Josh Allen is better than ever. I think he looks fantastic. I think Stephon Diggs has been a great addition to the offense, and Singletary is a good running back for him, I think, as well. And his offense looks really good, but obviously the defense is really good. Tre'Davious White can really play, and they got a good front as well who can get to the quarterback. So, and I just think that right now is, I think Pittsburgh's struggling with their down the field attack. I think they have to get the ball to Claypool more down the field. Connor obviously has to get more involved in the running game. They have no running game. Basically, their short passing game is their running game, and they have to get Connor. I think Snell's a solid backup, but he's not going to give you volume carries. Juju is struggled a little bit. I like Deontay Johnson. I like James Washington as quick, fast wide receivers, but also with Johnson and Ebron, they've had a drop problem and they're dropping the ball. And I know Mike Thomas said this a couple weeks ago, and even after this game, that it's a problem. They're dropping too many balls, and with this quick pass offense that relies on after the catch ability, they have to be able to catch the ball. So I think Buffalo's a tough addition. I still think Pittsburgh finishes strong. I don't know if they're going to get that bye with the Chiefs playing it the way they are right now. I still think Pittsburgh's a really good team. Their defense is great. I know they lost to Bud Dupree is a really, is a huge loss because he's pass rusher is so hard to find in this league. But, they still got TJ Watt. They still got, Cam Hayward and Tua in the middle of that line. They got, who's that linebacker in the middle?
Devin Bush.
Spillane can really play. He's a good player. I like him. He can play. Obviously, Minka Fitzpatrick is a great player. He's one of the best safeties, I think, in the league. And they have good corners, obviously. And they're missing, another corner this past Joe Hayden. No, there was somebody else.
Zach making a guest appearance.
Steven Nelson, they're missing him too. So they'll be better. I think I'll buy that Buffalo wins, but I don't think it wouldn't be by much. I won't be surprised if Pittsburgh wins. I think it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be really close.
I think so as well. All right, Connor. Next question: buy or sell? Derrick Henry has over 100 rushing touchdowns, 100 rushing touchdowns, 120 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns on Sunday against the Jaguars. Buy or sell?
I'll buy just because I need him for my fantasy league. So I'm in my playoff, my best players. So I'm going to buy. Plus, that Jacksonville defense is pretty bad. Obviously, they're one of the worst teams in the league. They look like they're set on being number 2 in the NFL draft, drafting Justin Fields. So, yeah, I don't know. I buy. I think Derrick Henry he had a pretty bad week last week. He had 60 yards but a fumble too, and he really wasn't productive as he usually is. So I think it's a bounce back week as a big week. And I'll say, I think he has close to 200. He has 2 touchdowns too. So I think a big week for Derrick Henry. I think the Titans roll over Jacksonville and have a big win.
Love it. All right, Connor, buy or sell? Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP of the league this year.
I'll sell. It's all about narrative, the MVP. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win it. I think Aaron Rodgers, obviously with them drafting Jordan Love in the first round of the draft last year, I think he's really responded well, even compared to Carson Wentz, who's not responded well to the Eagles drafting quarterback early on. So Aaron Rodgers has been fantastic the past couple of weeks. I think the Packers could, let's see. I don't know. The Saints have to play the Chiefs the following week, so maybe the Packers get to sneak into that bye and get that first round bye and see what happens. But I think Aaron Rodgers is set on it. I think that the NFL doesn't like giving back-to-back MVP awards for some reason. I think that it's hard to eclipse the year you had before. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes last year was fantastic, and even the year before. But I think Aaron Rodgers wins it. I think he's been really good, and obviously we saw, last Sunday against the Eagles that he's better than ever, and he's accurate as ever, and he's still that Aaron Rodgers that we all seen before. So I'm going to sell on Mahomes winning the MVP and Aaron Rodgers winning it.
I'm gonna buy that. Final question here: Patriots make the playoffs, buy or sell?
So I think that there's two teams better than them in their division, Buffalo and Miami. I think Miami's defense is young, fast, can play really well. Even though Tua struggled a little bit, he's obviously not been what they've hoped so far. He's still pretty good. I think that just their passing game for the Patriots is too weak. I think Cam Newton only threw for 69 yards last week. It's unacceptable. I think that obviously it's going to be enough to beat the Chargers, but it's not going to be enough to beat like a pretty good team. So, yeah, I think Buffalo wins the division. I think they're better than both Miami and New England. I think Miami gets that last wild card spot. So I'm going to sell on the fact that New England gets into the playoffs.
All right, Connor. So just to recap here, Connor bought that the Bills win over the Steelers, bought Derrick Henry over 120 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, sold Patty Mahomes on the MVP, and sold that the Patriots make the playoffs. All right, Connor. So now we're transitioning into a team that we love again. I know we were a little frustrated with them, but they made some good changes not only on the court but in the front office and then the coaching staff. You and I's favorite basketball team, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Obviously, yeah. Yeah, I know.
So real quick, before we dive in, I just want to ask if you heard this. Did you hear that possibly that there was this rumor Simmons for Harden? And what do you think of that?
Well, we heard the rumor early on, in the offseason, but this, James Harden obviously leaked something to ESPN saying that, listen, I'll be down for, trade to the Sixers as well. So really what it says, I think, is that the trade to the Nets really isn't working out. They obviously, the Nets don't have a lot of assets for Houston to acquire or to trade away James Harden. I mean, Houston, other than Durant and Irving, they have a couple veteran players, but not enough for a rebuilding team like Houston at this point. So I think that I think Houston's like thinking in their mind that maybe they can get a Ben Simmons out of that trade. But as the way that Doc Rivers is talking about Ben Simmons right now, he's having a great camp. He looks, better than ever. I think as of right now, where they stand, I think that'd be smart for the Sixers to stand pat and keep Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid going forward. And Daryl Morey's already, been vocal about the point that he wants to keep these two young guys together and wants to keep the team around them as of right now going forward into the 2021 season. So I heard the report, and it interested me, obviously, but we're seeing James Harden in clubs and drinking and partying and stuff like that at this point right now. And even though he's a great player, he's obviously one of the most offensive gifted players I've seen in my lifetime. As of right now, I just don't know if I want to make that move. Maybe just keep the money as for right now. Maybe when the trade deadline hits and you think that this team is not where they want it to be, maybe make that move so they can make a playoff run going forward. But as of right now, I think I like Embiid and Simmons going forward with the roster that Morey built with the Sixers.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't really like the sounds of it, only because these two young guys, they seem like that they're getting have a good relationship and getting a stronger one. I feel like if you trade away Simmons or Embiid, vice versa, I think one of these guys are going to be upset that one of them left. So I think it's a good idea, like you said. They made a lot of changes, in the front office with Morey and Doc Rivers, bringing in Sam Cassell as an assistant coach, and then making some moves on the court, bringing in Kerry, obviously Maxey through the draft, Ferguson, and some other guys in trades, Danny Green. So I think you're completely right in saying that. And I think that this will serve them well in the long term to keep Simmons and Embiid together and have this young core. So also want to mention, like you said, we're about a week away from preseason with the Sixers. And then on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, they will open up against the Washington Wizards. Saw some pictures of Russ on Instagram and in the new threads in Washington. So kind of swinging it over to you, Connor. What do you think of, this game based on what has been coming out about the Sixers in training camp? I know they released a hype video the other day. What do you think this game is going to be like, and what are you expecting from the Sixers team?
Which game are you referring to?
The opening night against the Wizards.
I think I expect them to win. And we looked at their schedule; it's pretty weak so far in the 7-8 game range. I expect them to get off to a good start, even though they have added a lot of pieces and they had to, get used to each other, playing in legit games. But I expect them to beat Washington. I think that even though they have a good backcourt, obviously Westbrook and Beal, I think, they're talented in the backcourt, obviously more talented, I think, than Wall and Beal together. I still think this 76ers team is better because once you get past that backcourt in Washington, they don't have a lot, surrounding them. So I like the Sixers going forward. I think they're going to be a good team this year, and I actually expect them to make a pretty deep run. I'd like to see, obviously, in this household, a 76ers-Laker matchup. I think that'd be exciting and exciting for the NBA brand.
Love it.
Exciting go for. I'd love it. Yeah, seriously, I would. I probably wouldn't love the end result of it, but I love it. But I think the Sixers team going forward is a pretty good team. I think they have enough money to make a move at the deadline if they have to, maybe add another shooter or a scorer or something like that. But I know there's been a lot of rumors about whether or not what the starting lineup combinations will be. In my mind, I like, obviously, Simmons starting at the point guard and Embiid at center. I like Tobias Harris at the 4. I like to stretch out a little bit, give Embiid and Simmons some room to work down low. I like Danny Green at the 2. I like Steph Curry. He's a really good shooter, but I like Danny Green's defense more so than Curry. I think Danny Green, even though he's obviously not as good, I think he's not as good as I think he was in San Antonio or even Toronto. He had a great year in Toronto the year they won a championship. But I think that his 3-and-D type of play will be really good as a starter, and you could bring Curry off the bench and maybe even have Curry in, late in game situations too as well when it's a close game. But I like him at the 2, and then even at the 3, I like Matisse Thybulle. I think if Thybulle's healthy and ready to go and his 3 is working and shooting really well, I like his 3-and-D well too. And that's a really good offensive and defensive starting lineup for the Sixers going forward. I don't know what you think, but that's my opinion. I know there's a lot of rumors of whether or not who's going to start, not start, but I think Harris has to be at the 4, and then that 2-3 combo will be nice with Thybulle and Green at the 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that as well. I think there's a lot of, positions of where guys could play and a lot of guys that can play. I think the Sixers are definitely going to have a strong bench this year. And I feel like in years past, that's kind of been, not the end all be all, but definitely a factor in winning some games they should have won. So I'm excited to not only see the starters, but the guys come off the bench. It's definitely going to be an exciting game against the Wizards. Just with everything surrounding them with the trade of Westbrook, and now the pairing of Westbrook and Beal. So I think it's going to be a good game, man. I'm excited to see the preseason as well. It's crazy how unique this season is. They were playing basketball 3 months ago, and now they're already back into the preseason. I guess that's kind of how the off season works, but obviously with everything going on, it's a little more unique. So, it's gonna be fun to see this team and see a healthy Nets team as well, and see the Sixers go up against them and compete in their meetings they have. So, I do want to throw it's not a somewhat hot take, but definitely like a prediction.
Hot take, so.
Definitely a prediction for this year. I think a team that's really going to make some noise in the West, and especially now that the Golden State Warriors are hugely decimated without Klay Thompson. I think the Suns are really going to be a team to watch in the West this year. I think Devin Booker getting paired up with Chris Paul is really going to help his growth, not only on the court but as a leader, and really be one of the top players in this league this season. And I think DeAndre Ayton is a good center that has a lot of skill and size, probably some raw ability coming into the league, but I think he's looking really well. And I think this team's going to really mesh well. I think Chris Paul is one of the best, facilitators on the floor and taking young guys under his wing as he kind of displayed in Oklahoma City last year. So I'm projecting that the Suns make the playoffs. And I think once they get in there, they could definitely win a first-round meeting possibly. So there's my little hot prediction of the year, and then they're always going to be coming on the Connor and Mark show.
Well, they always come. All right. Well, before we get into college football, because we have a lot to talk about college football before we end the show, I do want to talk about this with the Flyers. They signed Phil Myers to an extension 3 years, $2.25 million a year. That's a pretty good deal, I think, going forward. Phil Myers is a really good player, developing into a solid defenseman going forward with the Flyers. Just a little bit of a reaction for you, Mark. What do you think about the signing, and how big of an impact do you think Phil Myers will have on the Flyers next year?
Dude, I love the signing, and in saying that, I love the signings, and I say that in a plural tense because Howie Roseman should get across the street to the Wells Fargo Center and take a few classes from Chuck Fletcher on how to get guys into good deals, because the Flyers have been making a ton of good signings and some really good investments.
It's didn't get enough
You know,
classes at law school, I guess. So.
yeah, nah, you probably wasn't even paying attention. Take it from a hockey GM, but nah, seriously, I love the Phil Myers signing. I know he was in some trade talks, possibly about Line A, and then one of the more recent ones of Sanheim and him in a Nylander possibility. But I think, Chuck Fletcher and as much as we ragged on Ron Hextall, I think he did a really good job at building this team from the ground level up. It took some time and you had to be patient, but great signing there. And a few others, just Konechny last year. They got him, I think, 6 years, $5 million AAV. Nolan Patrick 1 year, under $1 million. So they got some young guys, some good core guys. I'm pretty sure they got Sanheim last year for a good deal. So I'm excited to see this Flyers core move forward. I don't think they need to make any moves, any big splash moves that can send one of these guys away. I think just in the playoffs last year, Myers and Sanheim alone got a lot of experience. I think they're going to come in as some mature and really good defensemen for the Flyers this year. So I love the trades. I'm fired up. I love the new jerseys that they're wearing, and I'm ready to get this freaking season on the road. I'm ready for some hockey, baby.
Yeah, I'm ready to go too. I love the deal going forward. I think Phil Myers is going to be a huge addition to the Flyers, or huge, long-term, obviously defenseman going forward with this organization. But let's head into college football. I think that, let's pick up couple of games that we're looking forward to. Personally, I'm looking forward to Penn State, 2-5. Big win against Rutgers last week. We all knew they were a great program. They're a great program, Mark. The Rutgers, they're
great
dominant,
program.
and the defense came out and they stood up and they played well. They played Michigan State. They got one more game after that. I don't know. They have to figure out the Big Ten, has to figure out what that opponent is. But could they weasel their way into a little bowl game? We'll see what happens. I think that'll be exciting to figure out if Sean Clifford can lead this team into a little bit of a Cheez-It Bowl game, something like that. A little.
I like Cheez-Its.
Yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to a ranked opponents matchup, obviously, between Miami and North Carolina. I think it's be a good matchup between those two teams. Georgia, Missouri. Missouri's at 25. I like to see how Georgia matches up against them. Missouri's 5-3. They're actually better than I expected. And looking at some other games, obviously Indiana, how they match up. They're playing Purdue though, so it's a pretty easy matchup against them. And we'll see how obviously LSU is a pretty bad team. They're playing up against number 6 Florida. So I'll throw this question to you. Obviously, some games that stick out to you, but also, what do you think of the 4 teams at the end of the year that could be in the college football playoff?
Well, first of all, the games that I'm looking forward to this week, one that kind of broke my heart last week. It was a tough game to watch. Wisconsin taking that L. I believe it was to Indiana. Yup, 14-6, and then Northwestern.
We were Indiana on this household.
I like Wisconsin, man. I think they're a tough-nosed program. I mean, obviously, guys like J.J. Watt coming out of there, and Russell Wilson, Melvin Gordon. So some good names coming out of there. But they're playing Iowa this week. It's not a huge game just because Wisconsin's not ranked anymore. And Iowa, I believe, is 5-2. This is going to be a big game for them. They can still possibly sneak into the Big Ten bowl game against Ohio State, which I'm going to dive into after this. But I think Wisconsin goes into Iowa and they get a big win. And then obviously, Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan's awful, but always a cool matchup, a historic matchup. Just a little fact about that game. This is the first game not being played between Michigan and Ohio State since 1919, and the reason they didn't play that game was because of World War I. So pretty crazy. Over 100 years of them playing every year and not playing this year. But real quick, before I do hop into the college football 4 teams, Connor, because this is going to impact it, Ohio State was supposed to – I don't know who they were supposed to play this week, actually, but whoever they were supposed to play got canceled due to, I believe, COVID.
Yeah, it was supposed to be against Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Jesus, dude, I'm an idiot. I'm literally looking right at it, and I just said it. Long day. Ohio State
everyone's got
not playing.
Stuff.
not playing this week due to COVID against Michigan, like I literally just said. That was a really bad mess up. But basically what I'm trying to get at here is the Big Ten had a game minimum that you had to play 6 games. Ohio State's only played 5. They were unable to find an opponent. The Big Ten, of course, for Ohio State, released this band, and they're going to go to the Big Ten championship. But the 4 teams, Connor, this is going to surprise you. I'm going to go with Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson. I think Texas A&M squeaks into that number 4 spot over Ohio State.
So
only because
they're way in over Ohio State.
Only because, and I know the committee is really favorable over Ohio State. So I know they're probably going to get it. I'm trying to make the show a little interesting. But Texas A&M, they played a good game last week against Auburn. They've really shown all year, except that one really bad loss in Alabama, that they are a good football team. I feel like they deserve a shot and give someone else a go at it. But I'm going to go Texas A&M as my 4th team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think at this point, it comes down to, I think, Clemson, Notre Dame in the ACC championship, and I think Clemson wins it. I think obviously Trevor Lawrence is obviously the best quarterback in college football, and I think that with him back compared to the previous game against Notre Dame, I think they win this game. So I think it's going to be Bama. Bama's going to be number 1. Clemson's going to be it's going to be Ohio State number 2, I think they'll probably put them at. Clemson number 3, and then Notre Dame number 4. So I don't know. I know you're a big Notre Dame guy. I was not, but they proved me wrong, obviously, against Clemson. I just don't think they could beat them twice in a row. That's a tough task to play a program like Clemson to beat them twice in 1 year. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, if they do beat Clemson twice in a row, I'd rather have Florida in there than A&M. And here's why. Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts are really good, and probably the best combination, quarterback to receiver in the country. They're super talented. I think that obviously, if you need another SEC team in there, I'd probably leave Florida over A&M. But it really just comes down to schedule and trying to think who would play Alabama in the national title game. Would it be Florida? I think it would be Florida playing in the national title game there.
SEC?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the SEC chip?
Yeah, so let's say Bama and Florida play each other in the national title game, and Florida could somehow win that game against Bama, they'll definitely be in.
I agree with that. I definitely think that as well. It's going to be interesting to see what this committee does. Seems like they're a little biased sometimes, which is a little upsetting. I think they go for the ratings. Sometimes I would like to see the teams get switched up, but I do agree if it's the best 4 teams in the country, that's going to be the best matchups. And obviously Bama's locked in there at 1, and I think Notre Dame, barring a loss in the ACC championship, a really, really bad loss and a big win by Florida, that could reshape this entire college football playoff. So it's going to be interesting, man. I'm excited to see, but that's all I got on this front, and anything else you want to add, you can give it a go.
Yeah, listen, obviously the circumstances with Sykes shutting down and not being in studio, obviously interviews are, pushed back more so than what we wanted, but we definitely want to get more content out there, interviewing more people, interviewing more analysts, writers, hopefully athletes down the line is something that we want to do, but hopefully just follow us on social media, Connor Mark Show on Twitter, to make sure you caught up on our content. We're going to put these episodes on YouTube as well to make sure that it's more accessible to people who don't have Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also listen there as well. And just make sure we'll try and get some more reaction videos. It's reaction post-game lives to Eagles games, Big Sixers game, Flyers game, stuff like that. And just try and get as much as we can produced on the YouTube page as well. So that's really it. Do you have to say anything before we go?
Nah, man, I'm all good. I'm excited to, watch some college football this week. Unfortunately, some of the games are canceled due to COVID, but check those out. Check some football out, obviously, and the Fly Guys and the Sixers are on the horizon. And it's all good here in Philly, other than the Eagles.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll try and get an instant reaction to Eagles Saints this weekend. But until next time, Mark Rogers, Connor Gabe. We'll see you guys next week.